Support for this podcast is brought to you by the Wyoming Humanities. We take a closer look at our human experiences and use stories to explore culture, history, and contemporary issues. You can find us on thinkwy.org.
Yeah, if you don't have your line in the water, so they say, you're not going to catch many fish. So that's kind of, I think, the principle that drives people towards fly fishing or fishing in general.
Hello, I'm Emmy DeGrappa. This is What's Your Why? Each week we bring you stories asking our guests the question why. We learn about their passion, why they do what they do, why should we care, and what can we learn? What better place to explore the human landscape than from the state known for its incredible landscapes, Wyoming? And what better organization than Wyoming Humanities? Serving our state for over 45 years, we share stories, ideas, and wisdom about the human experience. Welcome to What's Your Why? Today, we are talking to co-owner and entrepreneur Chaz Marsh. He is the co-owner of Jackson Hole Steelworks. Welcome, Chaz.
Thank you so much for having me, Emmy.
What we want to start with is why Wyoming? Where are you from, first of all?
Everybody always asks me this. All over. Grew up in Dallas, Chicago, Philly, bounced around. My folks were moving around due to my dad's work, so I ended up getting to see a lot of the country and some of the major cities from a pretty young age.
So I guess the next question is, why Wyoming?
There you go. So Wyoming, the hooks got in deep early. I was out here with my father in '82 fishing, and then we started hunting out here, and I ended up going to camp at Teton Valley Ranch Camp. So when I say the hooks got in deep early, I was enriched with, this wonderful childhood lifestyle of being outdoors with my dad, my family, and Wyoming just made sense. It's rough, it's rugged, it's real, and Jackson was someplace that I always foresaw myself hanging my hat.
So then, what was your journey as an entrepreneur? What made you think that Wyoming would be a good place to start a business?
Well, Wyoming actually was a segue for me. I'd, like most people, gone through, 20 years of school and graduating from Villanova, and I left and worked for a company on the East Coast for a short period of time, and I just kind of wanted to come out here and take a year and go do some fun stuff and work in the service industry and get some fishing in and some hunting and enjoy Wyoming as an adult by myself and on my own. So it was really just kind of an interim year for me, and that's when I moved out here in 2000, roomed up with a couple of guys and started my supposedly 1 year of being in Jackson that has now turned into almost 18 years. So started fly fishing, or actually guiding as a fly fishing guide for world class anglers, and that was where the rest of my guiding career started. I spent my summers here, spring, summers, and falls in Jackson. And then my winters were spent in Louisiana guiding for redfish on the fly. So that was kind of the
Oh, so you
balance.
started as a fishing guide?
Yes.
Even though you had a degree in something else in business? What was it?
It was in communications. Yeah.
Okay.
And I felt like being in a boat with people for 10 hours a day communicating on how to fish better was a good way to use it, I guess. So I think that the guiding thing for me was more so the becoming the teacher. I was always the one being taught, and that transition for me was very easy. I think that communicating with people and communicating, the idea or concept of something that might be foreign to them, it just kind of came naturally. So spending 10 hours a day in a boat with people who were good fishermen or brand new to fly fishing was something I relished in. And I loved seeing people progress in a short period of time to becoming better and better fishermen, and also attaching themselves to the sport and making that a primary hobby of theirs. So, yeah.
What do you think the passion is about fishing? Because I'm not a fisherman, and I would love to learn, but I have never, besides with my grandpa when I was really little, but just never, got into it. Why do people love it?
I think it just combines so many great elements of what just human nature consists of. I mean, there's the part of being together with people or being by yourself, and spending some time sort of meditating to some degree or finding that center in your own life. And then also palling around with buddies and fishing buddies that, you can have a great time. And on the back end of that, I think, or maybe at the front end, is really the mystery of what's beneath and the hope that Walter is going to come up and take the fly and that you're going to have that big moment. But I think it's very reflective of life and certainly as we move towards talking about business, there's always the risk and the reward. But yeah, if you don't have your line in the water, so they say, you're not going to catch many fish. So that's kind of, I think, the principle that drives people towards fly fishing or fishing in general.
And so how did you make the transition from a guide to becoming an entrepreneur and opening Jackson Hole Steelworks?
So 9 years guiding fresh and salt water. I was at certain points in my career doing upwards of 250 days a year on the water. That's a lot of time, and it's taxing on the body. It's a lot of sun. It's a lot of physicality. So there's part of it that for me, I knew that for the sake of my body, I didn't want to pull on the oars or push a flat skiff around or pull a flat skiff around for the rest of my life. And there's sort of came this epiphany in my life where I felt like what I had gotten from guiding was received, and I felt like there was somewhere else I wanted to take my career and take sort of that drive and pursue something grander and its own right. So that was sort of where I applied to business school and decided to go to University of Denver and get my MBA. I didn't have a ton of background in finance and certainly some other elements of math had faded from the college years. You go 9 years running around fishing a bunch, you sort of forget a lot of the stuff that you use day to day as somebody who runs a business. So it seemed like the right segue for me to go back, get some really structured education on the business side, and then develop a plan. And that plan happened to be originally for a brewery. When I was in school, I was brewing with a buddy of mine bi-weekly, religiously. We had all his friends and my friends come over, and the only rule was you had to bring some food, and we'd serve you all the beer you wanted. And while we were, eating and drinking, we were also making new beers and working on different styles and trying out different yeast strains and things like this. And I really enjoyed it. I think there was a great camaraderie around it, and for me, it was just something I felt very passionate about. And so while I was in school, I started utilizing a craft brewery as a case study for any classes that I could use it for. So statistics and finance and marketing, of course, that's a major part of that. But wherever I could plug it in, I was. And that sort of built this really beautiful business model for what was to be a brewery. It was only that we were finding out about Roadhouse, which makes phenomenal beers, by the way, that they were coming online with a very similar model to what I had drawn up in school. And Travis and I were brewing beer together and working on some pretty fun recipes and things that we were hopeful put out in the market. But when they started launching, it was really an offhand comment from Travis, and he said, well, maybe what the Valley needs is a distillery. And we paused for about 10 seconds on the phone, and it was like, well, all right, I guess that's what we're doing, because you can't really do it legally without having, a license from the federal side. And of course, a lot of people do it in their garages and work on recipes over time. But we really have never made an illegal drop of spirits, which is, I think, rare in our industry, but certainly a fun part of our business that we waited and we developed our business, and we had a lot of R&D for our first two products, which are High Water and Great Gray Gin. Yeah.
And so how did Travis come into the picture? Was he always like a roommate, a buddy that you were always brainstorming with, and then you became partners?
Yes, we connected through a great friend of his from out in Philadelphia. They moved out here together, And we were introduced in 2000, and the rest is history. I mean, we fished and hunted and did some really fun stuff together, and certainly plenty of R&D on the beer and wine and spirit side during that time. I guess you can call it R&D, but we went out a lot. So we always had this notion in our heads that we were going to do something together that was, a little more than what we may have thought about as we entered Jackson. I mean, you come here, you're a fly fishing guide, or you're working at the mountain, or some service industry job to start, but we really wanted to build a business together, and that was our hope, and we have done that.
And what was the risk?
Oh, the risk. That when you come to market, people may or may not buy your products, that hopefully your R&D puts you into the right position to get repeat sales. I mean, you can get them to buy it once, but if the product's not any good, they're not coming back. So I think we've tried to mitigate as many risks as we can. And if you want to associate that to the fly fishing metaphor, that would be we were using the right flies as much as possible and trying to produce the honey, so to speak, that would attract them. So I think we've certainly taken financial risks on many levels for both of us. And, we keep pursuing this every day, day in, day out. Hard work was something that we didn't have to worry too much about in terms of the risk. We knew that the drive was in both of us to pursue this as hard and as best we could to be successful. So,
what makes you uniquely Wyoming?
Well, other than we love the state, our hearts are here, and they always have been. And I think that for us, when we built recalibrated the model for the distillery, our intention was to source as much from local farmers, our local water, obviously, and try and keep things as local as we can, and as Wyoming proud as we can. It's written on our bottles, and we really mean it. Jackson in itself can get segmented a little bit up here in the northwest corner from the rest of the state, but everybody knows Wyoming pride and the cowboy way, and that you bootstrap your way in life, you work hard, you apply those principles to life every day, and just remain an honorable and solid hard worker. So that's what we do. Have
you traveled a lot around the state?
About every corner and every nook and cranny in this state. Travis and I have had the chance to see it, and it's been very enlightening. We kind of kid our friends who travel into the state from out of state. If they're driving, we always say, if you are broken down or get a flat tire in any part of the state at this point, we now feel as though we have friends in any town, whether that's 10-person population or 50,000 person population, that we could call on to come help them out, or we feel that way about even ourselves. So it's, we have traveled a lot and met some wonderful, wonderful Wyoming folks.
And I think that is really great, because I don't know about you, but I always get disappointed when I meet people in Teton County and they haven't been out of Teton County.
No, the bubble.
Yeah, and I think, wow, you're missing such a beautiful state that has so many amazing landscapes all across it. I mean, yes, we love the Tetons, but man, there are some amazing places to go in Wyoming.
There certainly are. And a lot of those folks around the state, they see Jackson as this tourist mecca, and it certainly has its merits. But even the smallest towns in this state have some of the most incredible history, a lot of which has come and gone through the years, whether that's through the Great Depression or the boom and bust nature of hydrocarbons and the coal industry.
So my last question to you is, what advice do you have to young people making decisions about their lives? What do you say about risk? What do you say about, is it about going to college? What do you think makes the difference for young people today?
That's a lot to answer in a short period of time, because there's so much to it.
You have 1 minute.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that innately people know in themselves that they have the drive, and whatever that comes from in their youth and through high school, I think you know it if you're pouring your heart into a performance, if you're in performing arts or artwork or math or sports. At some point in those there's a moment where you know you're hustling as hard as you can, and I try and take that mindset where there's a never quit attitude and apply that to day. And I think that you also have to be mindful of the fact that those risks are there, and you try to look at all of the risks. I think we overlook things because our hearts want our business to go in a certain direction, but the foresight is imperative in that where you see failure is typically because of lack of research or lack of studying up on what the rules or regulations or what the rest of the market is doing or where that idea may or may not go. And if you do your best to look at all the moving parts, to do at least a 30,000-foot elevation perspective on it all, and try and garner some really solid idea of the marketplace, I think you've got a great chance to be successful. And I think a lot of times people have their hearts hung on an idea, and if you're really a true entrepreneur, you're going to find that you'll go through 1, 2, 3, 10 ideas before you become successful in just one of them. But the feeling of success that you do have is magnificent. It's a wonderful feeling, but it's I think that sort of balance to know when to let go of an idea that may not work, or that you feel very strongly that it may not work. And I know that sounds a little bit heavy, and I am a true optimist, but I think that you look at those different components, you make your best assessment, and then you launch, and then you go, and you do your best, and you work your hardest to build relationships, to fulfill your dreams. And I know that sounds cliche, but it really is. It's pursuing those as though you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Well, I liked what you said. Never give up. Never stop.
Never stop.
Keep going.
That's a Wyoming way right there.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Thanks, Chas. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. I'm Emmy DeGrappa. This Think Why podcast is brought to you by the Wyoming Humanities. We use the humanities as a lens to explore the human experience. You can find us online at thinkwhy.org.